Well, that thing does roar to beat the band, don't it?
Pretty loud.
So how much interference does that give you?
Well, it just got a constant roar in the background all the time.
We're going to be ready here in just a second. If you
Sure.
kind of look to me like we did in the past,
All right.
if you can tell us about the homes and the way they're constructed and so forth.
Well, of course, there were a few homes that residences that were centrally heated. I was raised in one. Had a coal furnace and a radiator system, a hot water heating system. Most houses were heated by either stoves or fireplaces or heaters. They used to have what they called heaters that they heated the whole house with one heater. I think one of the brand names was Arcola. And they seemed to the houses were not tightly constructed like they are now and not insulated as thoroughly as they are because I guess electricity and gas and that became so expensive. If you didn't insulate them and build them tight, it cost you so much to heat them and cool them. And of course, I never heard of an air conditioner when I was, as a matter of fact, I was criminal judge from 48 to 58 over in the courthouse there, and we didn't have air conditioning in that place. It came along after then, because that courtroom was not air cooled at all. It would get hot in there too. But the homes were well built, but they were built according to the style of the times, you might say. There was no necessity, and they didn't feel like there was any great necessity for tight construction and insulation because the method of heating was not so precious and expensive as it would be with electricity and so forth.
That's fine. That's real good. It'll be just a second here. He'll tell us when he's ready. Okay.
I don't see any difference in people in that length of time. I doubt if there is any appreciable difference. I styled it sort of the assembly line syndrome has removed part of the natural pride that a person would have, an artisan would have, if he built the whole instrument he was building and working on. He does a certain thing to it and it passes on to somebody else on the assembly line, and that has tended to remove a lot of the pride of the artisan in his handiwork. I think that's the only explanation. I don't think people are that much different. The 8-hour day was never heard of when I was a boy, except maybe you read about it where there's some labor agitator trying to get an 8-hour week, and there was a lot of necessity for it. The way you take the sweatshops where they work women and young people in there and paid them nothing but hardly what they had to pay them, and just work them 12, 14 hours. And it was a consequence, the 8-hour day was a consequence of that condition. Most of it was up in the East, I think. I don't think it went on around here that I could tell. We were more of an agrarian society than we are now. That is, the farmer and the people living in the rural sections played a bigger part in these.
Let's tell the story about the first time you rode in the car, and if you want to couple it with the first time you drove a car.
I was a small boy. First time I rode in the car, I rode from over what's known now as North Chattanooga on Forest Avenue up to Ooltewah. In that neighborhood, I'm not exactly clear exactly where it was. It was off towards what they call Snow Hill, I think, to visit a client and friend of my father's, a big farm owner up there. His name was Davis, I remember that. And I remember him throwing the watermelons down out of the barn loft. He was going to cut watermelons that afternoon. And that old car was a Cadillac automobile that they said a one-cylinder Cadillac. I don't know whether it was or not, but it made an awful noise, chug, 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 like that. It had tires on it about that big around. And it traveled all right, but that's the first time I ever rode in one. I drove a car when I was about 15, 16 years old. My father didn't get a car till I was about that old. He finally decided he was going to get him some cars and did. And he was an expert driver of everything but an automobile, but he never knew that. He drove it anyway. Sort of like they said about the bumblebee, you know, his way he was constructed, he couldn't, from a scientific point of view, he couldn't fly, but not being a scientist and not knowing that, he flew anyway, you know, and that's the way my father operated the automobile.
Okay, that's cute. One last, you can approach from either perspective, the scarcity of idle time or how people recreate it, either way.
Well, there is a big difference in the recreational habits of people that I see. In a way, people were more prone to entertain themselves back then. They for instance, they'd go to a political rally to hear the speeches. You can't get a crowd out to hear a speech hardly now unless you promise them some cold drinks and something to eat or something of the sort. The automobile, I think, has gone a long way towards eroding the value of the home in society. And I think that's an important element in our system of living, the home, because now everybody's got a car, and I began to realize that when my boys became large enough to drive a car and get away. They were hardly ever there except at night, and that was after I'd gone to bed maybe, that they'd come in. But there was never, when I was a boy, there was never a day passed that almost everybody in that family didn't meet at the dining room table and eat together. And you felt sort of like you was home free when you was home. That was a sanctuary that you was beyond reach. And people were more inclined to entertain themselves then than they are now. They have to have a professional football game or a professional this or professional that, and people more or less entertained themselves and were quite content and happy with that form of entertainment.
Excellent. That's real fine.
Okay, go ahead.
All righty, we're ready.
Yeah. Well, you haven't got sound on maybe anyway. All right. All right. Yes.
what do you do? Behind their eyes. Until it's almost like morning, but it's like born. When people start to think, how can I say that with my body? How about some signs that we can guess? You like to guess signs. We can even write some on the board if we want to. We can write some back there on the board. I got a sign for you. Let's see. Let's see if I know what it is. Okay, here's the sign. Watch it.